Good morning on this Monday, November 1st, 2021. Welcome to another edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. We have an action-packed show with chock full of news and information. So to get started, let us bring on, before we bring on Dr. Chavis, let's go right into this morning's headlines. In Philadelphia, when Philadelphia's mayor signs landmark legislation as soon as today, the city will become the first major U.S. city to ban police from stopping drivers for low-level traffic violations. Stops that studies show target Black drivers at disproportionately higher rates. It's called the Driver Equality Bill. It was passed by a 14-2 vote by the City Council last October, and it categorizes certain motor vehicle code violations as primary violations, which allow officers to pull people over in the name of public safety, and secondary violations that don't meet the criteria for a lawful traffic stop. So we're going to see how this bill shakes out, how the law shakes out, but it's a step in the right direction, many are saying. Now, let's bring on the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis, Jr. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Good morning, Stacey Brown. I'm reporting now from Atlanta, Georgia, getting ready for the election here in the state of Georgia. On behalf of the Black Press of America, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Karen Carter Richards, our distinguished chair, and the 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies all across America. We're glad to be on this Monday morning, November 1st.
Yeah, time flies, Doc. And before we get to our special guest, let's just give you one more news topic this morning. Jay-Z, LL Cool J, and Tina Turner were among the inductees Saturday in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, Ohio. Jay-Z, who was inducted by comedian Dave Chappelle, became eligible and nominated for induction in the performance category in February of this year when his debut album, Reasonable Doubt, turned 25. Dr. Dre did the honors for LL Cool J and reminded everyone that the man from Farmers Boulevard in Queens is indeed the GOAT. Of LL, Dre said he's hit that unique space that crosses and bridges generations, the rare artist beloved by you, your mama, and all your kids all at once. How about that, he said. How many artists in the rap game are relevant after 30 years? Congratulations to LL Cool J, who is the GOAT, and Jay-Z, Tina Turner, and all the inductees at that great ceremony in Cleveland on Saturday. Dr. Chavis, I know that meant a lot to you as well.
Absolutely. And on behalf of the Black Press of America, we sent each of them congratulations this morning on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We salute them. The creative genius of hip hop is not only in America and R&B in America, but all over the world.
Yes, indeed. And Dr. Chavis, the president's Build Back Better agenda contains a variety of tangible funding and action that would address many long-standing concerns in the African-American community and other communities of color. But the watered-down version that some Democrats in the Senate say they're comfortable with lacks the same punch, some say, but others say it's time to get it done. And one of those who say it's time to get it done is our special guest this morning from Texas, Congressman Al Green. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning. It's my honor to be with you, and a good morning to my very dear friend, Doc Ben. It's always a pleasure to be in your company. Thank you for your many years of commitment and service to people, and not just Black people.
Well, thank you, Congressman Al Green. Listen, we would not be where we are today in terms of progress without your outstanding leadership. I've known you for decades. You know, you were with the NAACP, you were a judge, you've been a leading member of the Congressional Black Caucus. You were the first person to call for Trump's impeachment. And I just want to let you know that we salute you and we agree with you. It's time to get this Build Back Better bill passed. It's time to get infrastructure passed. No more delay. And I think actually, I see the glass as not half empty. I see it as more than half full. Black America is going to benefit from both of these bills.
Yeah. Well, first, let me thank you for your kind words. They touch my heart. And I do look forward to our continuing to work together. And I see this as a phase. I don't see this as the end. You have to have a starting point, and this is where we'll start, but this is not where we should end.
Yeah, and Congressman, let me first of all, let me bring on two others as well, because we have a publisher with us as well from the New Tri-State Defender. Calvin Anderson is here, as well as his editor, Karanja Ajanaku. Gentlemen, we have the congressman, as you know. I'm going to ask the congressman first, and then Calvin Anderson, you can jump in. But Congressman, what is really significant about this? One of the things that's really significant about this is universal pre-K. Can you talk about that, please?
Absolutely. We don't want to give kids an unfair start in life. And unfortunately, a good many of the African American children, nearly 40%, are not enrolled in pre-K. This is going to give them an equal start. We want everybody to start out at the same point. And if we can do this, we will find that our children will do much better. So we have for the universal pre-K, literally millions and billions of dollars that will help these children get a fair start in life. But it also does something else for them. Education is more than simply learning to read, write, and do multiplication. It's about self-esteem. It's about being in class with other children on your first day and being on the same level that they are. So universal pre-K is an absolute necessity for our children. This bill provides money for universal pre-K.
Yeah, and Calvin Anderson, I'm going to throw it over to you if you have a question for the congressman.
Congressman, one, let me also join in thanking you for the diligence and efforts that it took to construct public policy. So thank you for your service. So the question would be, as we look at the two bills, and I guess look more at the infrastructure bill, for an area like Memphis that is connected by a lot of roads and a lot of bridges. In fact, we had a bridge that was out that spanned the I-40 that goes over the Mississippi River to Arkansas. And that was out for a few months this summer and gave great congestion and havoc to the transportation in and out of here. Tell me what this does for the infrastructure in Memphis and other cities like it.
Well, it's going to help infrastructure across the length and breadth of the country. We have found, pursuant to what engineers who study these things tell us, that our infrastructure in the main is barely passing if we were grading it. We've got to get beyond the barely passing and make sure that we, first of all, have safe infrastructure, but we also need more infrastructure. Cities are crowded, more cars are on the highways. We need to make sure that we expand our roadways. But in so doing, we've also got to do it in an environmentally friendly way. So we have to have money in to take care of the energy side of expanding, because cars do emit intoxicants that can pollute the air. As a matter of fact, we have electric vehicles are a priority. We have $555 billion in this package. This is in the reconciliation package now, to help us with these electric vehicles and other aspects of transportation. So I think that you're going to find that it's going to be very beneficial for your roads, your bridges, your airports, your seaports. This is a great package, and I'm going to support it. I'd like to always do more, but I cannot take the position that I'll do nothing because I can't get the more that I'd like to have.
Yeah, I know the congressman's time is limited. He has to catch a plane back to Washington. There are some major votes coming up. So I'm going to go back to Dr. Chavis. Dr. Chavis, the congressman is really here about Build Back Better and what he's telling us so far. We can sign on to, I'm sure.
Absolutely. There's funding in Build Back Better for HBCUs. I agree that universal child care, so many of our children languish. And you know, early childhood education is so important. The vocabularies of white children versus vocabularies of black children at pre-K and at first grade is terrible. And a lot of it because of the absence of adequate child care. And so I think that in many instances, including the infrastructure bill, replacing all these lead pipes. Y'all remember Flint, Michigan? Well, you know, African Americans are disproportionately impacted by environmental injustice. So both of these bills are vital to the future of not only Black America, but to all Americans. I want to thank again Congressman Green for his leadership and the whole entire Congressional Black Caucus to push these two bills through this week is so important. No more
Yes.
delays.
Well, I'm with you there, Dr. Ben. May I just add a few more things to the list that you
Absolutely.
called our attention? We're going to hopefully, and I believe we will, close the Medicaid coverage gap. In the state of Texas, Texas was accorded $100 billion for Medicaid that Texas rejected. That gap has widened in Texas, and we have to have people who don't make enough money to afford insurance, and they're not old enough to get Medicare. Also, there's $550 million for Pell Grants for the more than 5 million students who will be beneficiaries. $200 million for the HBCUs that Doc Ben just mentioned to us. $1 billion in grants to minority-owned businesses. $150 billion for housing. The Honorable Maxine Waters has fought to make sure housing is there. We have people who are sleeping under bridges. Bridges have become houses. If bridges, which is infrastructure, if they can become a place for people to house themselves, then housing can become the infrastructure necessary to make sure that people have a place to call home. And I would just mention one final thing, the expanded child tax credit. This is going to help some nearly 35% of African-American children elevate themselves out of poverty.
Congressman, real quick, do you have the votes now?
I think the votes will be there to pass it. This has been debated extensively. But friends, I regret to say it, but this is what democracy looks like. People want compromise, but they don't necessarily appreciate how compromise is developed. This is what democracy looks like. But I want you to know this also. The activist community has really made a difference, because there were times when there were those who thought that we might stop at a certain point and not get to where we are now. But the activist community was persistent. And I think that we've gotten to a place where we have a very good start. This is not the end. This is a battle. It's not the war. There's much more to be done, and we're going to stay in the fight.
Well, Congressman Al Green of Texas, the Black Press of America, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, certainly appreciates the work that you're doing, and that the fact that you give us time whenever we call, you are there. We appreciate that very much. I know Dr. Chavis appreciates it a lot.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Safe travels.
Thank you, dear brothers. Thank you.
Congressman Al Green of Texas. We're going to have more from our Texas representatives, Al Green and Sheila Jackson Lee. Probably later this week, I'm told Sheila Jackson Lee will be with us at some point. Dr. Chavis, Karanja, and Calvin Anderson, before we go on to another topic, let's kind of unpack the Build Back Better. And you asked the question there, Calvin Anderson. He's the publisher of the New Tri-State Defender. It's such a pleasure to have you on, Calvin Anderson. But for Memphis in general, what in that package, Calvin and Karanja, are you looking for that could really be transformational for Memphis, for African Americans in your city?
Dr. Karanja is, has the awesome task of being our executive editor and covering this in a wide range of stories and pulling them together for our digital daily and our weekly print. So I'm going to let him sort of, lean in first to give his thoughts on prioritization.
And thanks for saying Dr. Karanja, because he didn't clue us in on that part. We want to always give him that respect. Go ahead, Dr. Karanja.
Yeah, well, there's a long story to that. Greetings, Dr. Chavis and Mr. Brown. I'm so glad to be here with you. Mr. Anderson's already mentioned, one thing there in terms of the infrastructure. We had a major issue here with a span on the bridge, and it may not sound like a lot to some people, but it is. It's not just the danger of going over the bridge. That bridge is a connector between here and West Memphis. And for a lot of people in West Memphis, a lot of African-American people in West Memphis, their livelihood is on this side, right? And so that bridge and being in the order that it needs to be is so important. So to the degree that bill can provide us with some ongoing safety and continuity there, that's a good thing. The other thing, though, that comes to my mind is education. And that early education. Man, we live here in Memphis, yes. Tennessee, and Memphis, Tennessee has all of the possibilities, in terms of African-American people in the city, but we also have all of the ills relative to that, which can be a good thing in the sense that we can work on it here. But education is just so important. We have one of the poorest zip codes in the entire country here, 38126. Education, that we have to be able to to drill down to the deepest level relative to education, and to the degree that this bill provides us with additional resources and support, that's a great thing. The third thing that comes to my mind is HBCUs. You know, the HBCUs, I interviewed Dr. Glenda Glover from Tennessee State University not long ago, and she was talking about, hey, this being an HBCU moment. And, you know, beyond Deion Sanders and Eddie George and the high profile things, there are other things that are going on in terms of the importance of HBCUs. They've always been important, but people recognizing that. And to the degree that there is support in these bills, this pending legislation that can help the HBCUs continue what they're already doing, but also to enhance that, that's a really great thing. Those things come to my mind immediately.
Yeah. And before we go forward, I want to say good morning to our chair who's watching, Karen Carter Richards. I want to say good morning to Angela Conley. Good to see you again, Angela. Jackie Hampton down at the Mississippi Link, and Bobby Henry in Florida. David Youngblood, Dr. Chavis, I want this though to you and perhaps Calvin Anderson. He says we have a parent problem, not an education problem. I want to get a response from both Dr. Chavis and Calvin Anderson on that.
Well, I think we have a problem that challenges, yes, parents. It challenges our children. It challenges our community. It challenges our communities. I mean, listen, no one is exempt from systemic racism. And I agree with what Congressman Al Green said earlier. This is a step. This is a phase. This is not the end of our struggle. We have to continue to fight for education. I think what Dr. Karanja just said is so important. Listen, education has always been the key to our liberation. And we cannot allow our young people to be denied truth, to be denied the best of education, not mediocre education, but the best of education. Our world is changing. I just got to know, I'm glad to say people from South Africa are watching the program this morning. They're voting also today in South Africa. And I want to salute Dr. Karanja's African garb, because all the ANC members are wearing similar shirts like that today to get out the vote. I'm in Atlanta. I'm gonna put on my dashiki today to get out this vote here in Georgia.
Calvin Anderson.
Well, you know, the new tri-state defender always leads the way, Dr. Chavis. So Dr. Karanja is doing that today by virtue of his attire, which is part of his everyday. He's
Absolutely.
sort of 365 in the space. So on the education front,
Calvin Anderson is one of our leading entrepreneurs in Memphis. And Calvin, I think that Memphis is sort of the unheralded mecca of Black America. It's predominantly Black city. Memphis has so much opportunities, but as Dr. Karanja said, it also has extreme poverty. I think we turn Memphis around, it'll turn all of Black America around.
Thank you, Dr. Chavis, and that's our daily task.
Yeah, and Calvin, did you see the question there from Angela Conley? Just stand on that topic for one moment, and then I'll just let you continue. She says, do you think it's just this generation that cares less about education, younger parents?
No, I think when we say that there is an education challenge, I think it's the recognition that is by all participants in the education space that has to do a little more, a little better, whether it is the students, whether it is the parents, whether it is the teachers, administrators, school board members, or community stakeholders, that it's all of us sort of stacking hands and saying there is a problem, and it's all of us stacking hands and saying, let us together engage in the solutions. One of the things that we know is part of the solution is additional resources. And I think that was the aspect of one thing at a time that we prioritize at the moment. And at this moment, that prioritization is the resources, not that the resources alone solves the problem.
Well, in the mode of Dr. Chavis and Dr. Karanja, I'm gonna label Bobby Henry Dr. Bobby Henry, because he says let's not separate us any further to bring us together. We are all a part of the problem now. Let's all be a part of finding the solution. Dr. Karanja, respond to that, please.
Well, I think that he's right. And I think Mr. Anderson's hitting right on it. We don't have like a people problem as an isolated thing. We have a parent problem. We have an aunt problem and a brother problem and a sister problem. I mean, we're all part of the problem, but it's like, okay, well, what exactly is the problem, And so, I used to cover education for the daily newspaper. And back in 1984, a report came out by the National Association for Black School Educators. And that report was called Saving the African American Child. And it was a subcommittee of that group. But basically what it was saying is that all children in America were being miseducated, all children, particularly African American children, and they were being miseducated because they were not getting the basic information that they need to develop a healthy sense and concept of self. And so that really is why I wear all of this, because that's part of tying into that. And so really, when I say education, it's access to education and all those kinds of things, but we got to sort of open up in terms of what we're talking about with education. We've been talking for longest that we got a mindset problem and all that kind of thing, right? Well, how do you actually get at that? I mean, how do you actually get at that? And I just think that where we're going as African American people is to isolate that and to start providing solutions about that. And it's our job as a newspaper group, as individual newspapers, to stimulate that and to chronicle those things as it's going on. I mean, the Tri-State Defender came into business 70 years ago, and when it did, there was something going on in the country. There was a need, and people needed to know about what was going on, and we were able to step up like so many other newspapers and provide that information. So what I see happening is that is going to happen now. That there's going to be a step up relative to African American people about what we're going to do about our condition, and we have to be in a position as newspapers to stimulate that and to chronicle that, and that's why I'm so appreciative of the NNPA for all it does to help us as individuals and as a group to be able to leverage that kind of power.
Yeah, and Calvin Anderson mentioned in his question to the congressman earlier about emissions, and I know Dr. Chavis, we all know Dr. Chavis has been leading the fight about environmental justice. Wanted to talk a little bit more real quick about that too, between Dr. Chavis and Calvin Anderson and the environmental aspect of Build Back Better. I know, Dr. Chavis, you referred to it as Build Back Better Black America. Can you and Calvin Anderson, just in the next 2 minutes, talk about that briefly?
Yeah, I defer to my publisher because he's right there on the ground in Memphis. And certainly Memphis is one of the key cities for environmental justice movement.
It is, and I think you've seen within Dr. Chavis some of the coverage that Dr. Ajanaku and new Tri-State Defender gave to a group that was discussing underground aquifer and the aspect of pipes that could come across it. We covered that in a great extensive standpoint, and you had every different element of government getting into how much activity goes on through predominantly Black neighborhoods and how much input those neighborhoods get to give to what is what is put in, constructed in, and run through the segments of the neighborhood. So what we're hoping is that everything from updating water pipes to updating some of the roads and bridges will be something that comes about in the Build Back Better Act, and that it will also have a big segment of the community in those decisions. We're fortunate we're about to get a new Ford plant in that they're calling Blue Oval, that's going to produce electric batteries and be the catalyst for the new F-150 Ford pickup truck. That's going to be about a $5.6 billion investment that Ford Motor Company is putting into this area, and will contain about in excess of 5,000 jobs once it's fully constructed and activated. So the combination of looking to the future as well as the standpoint of cleaning up some of the errors of the past are the things that I think we're excited about in Memphis around Build Back Better.
Right. I just got a note from my chair, Calvin Anderson. Please bring Dr. Karanja with you to Hollywood, Florida in January for our Midwinter Conference. I'm inviting not only publishers, but I want you to bring all these strong editors. We got some great executive editors of our newspaper, and Dr. Karanja is right up there at the top. We want to get editors, publishers. Bobby Henry, you bring your person too. I see you on all the publishers. This is time for us to put our heads together to plan, to strategize how to empower the Black press, but also keep in mind what empowers the Black press is the empowerment of our community, the communities in which we serve. If we lift Black America up, we lift our businesses up.
Yeah, January 19th, 2022. Look, it's already November 1st, so you know it'll be here in a flash. So we look forward to that. And
we got some special incentives. I'll talk to you, Calvin. So we're gonna make it possible. I'm gonna have to send the NNPA jet out to pick y'all up.
Yeah, better than Air Force One, Calvin Anderson. You better believe it. Listen, we try to on Mondays and Fridays try to make it a little light at the end, called Minding Other Folks' Business. But you know what? Today is really not that light, because I want to get you guys' take on this too, because this is really it is minding other folks' business, but it's something else. Amid a controversy that has drawn more than just local headlines, people in the eastern Kentucky town of Hazard are rallying to support a high school principal, also the mayor, after photos surfaced of questionable school activities. The controversy began when photos were posted to the Hazard High School Athletics Facebook page of a man pageant. They call it a man pageant that took place during a homecoming week assembly at the school. Some of the photos showed teen boys dressed in women's lingerie, while teen girls were dressed as Hooters servers. The other photos show the same teen boys dancing on faculty members, including the high school principal. And photos show a student using a paddle to spank a teacher. Now, people in that crazy town say folks are overreacting. Say what? Overreacting. This is the problem with America, the world in general, a sense that children are expendable, that they are the least cared about. Folks, you can rally around the principal, the mayor, the so-called other adults in the room who not only let this happen, but willfully participated in it. But you know what? It is pedophilia behavior. What parent would be appalled or would not be appalled to see their son or daughter at a high school event with other young, impressionable, hormone-going crazy teens gyrating, twerking, and giving lap dances to teachers, coaches, and the principal, who is also the town's mayor? Y'all want to cancel Dave Chappelle? Well, how about this? I mean, this is downright filthy. It's pedophile-fueled behavior. That's not okay. Yep. We're minding your business, because not only do I think it's wrong, it is way wrong. Instead of defending this, somebody should be hiring a defense attorney, because a whole lot of crazy adults in Kentucky should be facing some serious charges today. Dr. Karanja, Calvin Anderson, Dr. Chavis, y'all want to weigh in? Please feel free to go right ahead.
Well, I think the hesitation says when we're thinking about that. But I just think this, man, is like I mentioned earlier, that a lot of us are being miseducated, and so it's not any one group per se. That all of America has a miseducation problem, and it shows itself in a lot of different ways. Part of it has to do with things that we choose to focus on and things that we do not. And so in this particular community, they've apparently made a decision, at least in this aspect of it, to do this. So yeah, we can all agree that that's just really a ridiculous thing to be moving on. But what comes to my mind is, what aren't they doing? What should they really be doing with that time and energy? There's got to be needs in that community, okay? And it could have been used in such a much better way.
Well, Angela Connolly says this is why she says education starts at home. They practice somewhere, and with someone. Education does start at home, but you send your kids to school. You can't expect this. I don't expect it. I'd have been the first parent at that school with authorities, my lawyer, and everything else. This Pam Parker says, where does this happen? It was Hazard, Kentucky. It's James Wright says tacky, just plain tacky. I think it's criminal. I don't think it's just tacky. I think it's criminal. Dr. Chavis.
Well, Kentucky. As I flew to Atlanta, I was on the plane with from Kentucky. We sat right next to each other. And after a period of silence, Brother Calvin Anderson, I broke the silence. I said, Senator McConnell, what is happening in Kentucky is outrageous to African Americans. And he looked around and said, well, are you that guy with the black press? I said, yes, I'm that guy. And then he said, well, what can we do? He was talking about the Republicans. What can Republicans do to get more black voters? I said, well, I'm glad you asked that question. First of all, there was a sister murdered in your state, and she has not received justice, Breonna Taylor. And then he said, well, they have a black attorney general in Kentucky. I said, well, because you have black folks in the judicial system, we need more black people in the judicial system, but that does not excuse the system itself from being racially discriminatory. We need the George Floyd Police and Justice and Policing Act passed. We need the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. The two bills that's before Congress, we need to get those passed, but that's just the start. That's not the end. And he says, well, do you know Senator Scott? I said, yeah, I know Senator Scott, the black Republican from, South Carolina. He tried to be cordial, but he was very, I think he was a little nervous because I, wanted to let him know that as the Senate minority leader, he put all those people in the Supreme Court, very conservative. And I think Republicans are not in any way doing anything to help Black America. And I wanted him to know that. So he asked me for my business card. I gave him the business card. He didn't give me his business card, but I said, look, I know how to reach you. I know how to reach you. But it was providential. And this situation in Kentucky don't think that's isolated to Kentucky. That's all over the United States. Malcolm X said it straight. When it comes to racial matters, and when you talk about the South is anything south of the Canadian border. The whole country is the South when it comes to racial discrimination against our people.
Yeah. Jackie Hampton, real quick, Jackie Hampton says that parents should be outraged. It is criminal, and these adult leaders should be held accountable. I couldn't agree more. Bobby Henry says, bring Mitch McConnell on the show. Well, you know what? The invitation is there for Senator McConnell. Anytime, you name it, you are more than welcome to come on this platform to talk to Black America and to be questioned by Black America, not just to talk to, but to be questioned by Black America. Listen, we're out of time. We've been out of time for a couple of minutes, but Calvin Anderson and Dr. Karanja, we want you guys to come back. This is the NNPA's platform, meaning it is your platform. So please come back and talk more about what's going on in the great city of Memphis, Tennessee, and around the country. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.